Howdy, welcome to the 6th and potentially final mock draft of the 2024 NBA draft cycle, again featuring the top 30 picks. This cycle's been a wild ride. These mocks have been really fun, albeit very polarizing, but I've enjoyed inciting some different discussions and offering different perspectives. This could be the final mock of the 2024 draft for me, not sure just yet. I will have a few more heat checks out, as well as my big board in the coming weeks, and then plenty more post-draft content after. Let's jump into it. For the final time, I've mocked Alex Sarr of NBL success to the Atlanta Hawks. Whether the Hawks want to move forward with Dynamo point guard Trae Young and run this thing back, or springboard into the new youth-based era, Alex Sarr is the pick. He's not my personal top prospect in this draft, but he's simply too valuable and fits too well on this squad as a 7-foot rim-protecting big who can really build on his offensive game. For my money, he'll be a really valuable piece long-term, probably a fringe all-defense player who will be able to provide some real shooting and shot-making in addition to his interior offensive presence. I'm not sure if moving off Young is the play just yet, but I would in the least retool the middle of this roster between those two in the short term. At number 2, we've got the Wizards taking a gamble on Nikola Topic of the EuroLeague. Washington's got a fascinating decision here. You could argue a lot of the best available players don't really pack that upside punch the team is looking for. I believe this could be the range for a Riza Shea or a Klingon, but I just don't see this front office really looking for those role-esque qualities at this point in the rebuild. I think Topic is absolutely in the mix, a 6'6" point guard who for my money is probably the highest ceiling ball handler in the class, and one that could really blossom with unlimited early career reps in Washington. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if the Wizards had explored a package to move up one spot for Alex Sarr. There could be some real merit to Atlanta liking Riza Shea or Klingon, and if they could add a valuable piece, maybe Kuz or Denny, drop back a spot and still get their guy, that makes a lot of sense. Third overall, we've got the Houston Rockets, who took a lottery night jump. I've got them selecting Reed Sheppard. It's a pick I've mocked before, a pick I love, and one that I think has a decent chance of happening if the Rockets stand pat. Houston has a variety of options here. I don't think they can necessarily go wrong. Riza Shea offers a 3-and-D wing. Klingon could be a front court pairing with Şengün if one or both can add to their perimeter game. I think both Ignite wings make sense here to a degree. Any prospect the Rockets grab, though, undoubtedly will be added to a strong rotation next season and play off the bench. And I think Sheppard, as probably the best shooter in this draft with phenomenal basketball instincts on both ends, is a malleable prospect that can mix and match well with this Rockets core. He fits great as an off-ball scorer next to Şengün, who they're about to sign long-term. I think Sheppard is destined to be a long-time NBA starter and offers Houston a backup option if and when they eventually reshuffle their backcourt. Fourth overall, we've got Zachary Riza Shea, a 6'9" French wing being paired with soon-to-be superstar Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio. Ultimately, if Riza Shea is on the board at number 4, I do think San Antonio pulls the trigger, and it makes sense. A lengthy, high-floor 3-and-D wing who can hit shots, play stingy off-ball defense, and potentially blossom into a swarming point-of-attack defender is great. I would bet San Antonio's thought process right now is to leave the top 8 with one wing and one guard. I myself would rather bet on Topic or Castle at 4 and hope one of the Ignite wings is there at 8, but I can understand the rationale in getting your wing first and shooting on the guard later. In Riza Shea, you're probably getting a bona fide long-term NBA starter for the foreseeable future next to Wemby, albeit one that I think has a lower ceiling than a few other prospects. At number 5, we've got one of the harder selections in this whole draft. The Pistons are in one of the most unique situations I've seen in some time in that they are the worst team in the league, but already have a variety of prospects they need to pour into. At the end of the day, I think they should probably just trade this pick. They already seem 1 foot out the door on several of their young guys. Some win-now talent would probably go a long ways for this franchise. Otherwise, if they keep it, just take a swing. I think Modest Buzelis as a wing who will play a complementary role early but could blossom into a star makes a lot of sense. I'm in the increasingly small camp of evaluators who really believe in Buzelis. I like the frame, like the feel for the game, believe in the shot. I think if he improves in a few areas, that's a strong starter in a few seasons. I know it's a big if, but if he were to hit, that would do wonders for Detroit. At number 6, we've got the Hornets, another pretty hard pick, and I've got them taking Stefan Castle of UConn. There's been reports that Castle is not working out for teams that already have a starting point guard. Despite him playing really well in the connective wing for the title-winning Huskies, he isn't looking to do that in the NBA, and that effectively adds Charlotte to his no-fly zone. I understand the chances of this pick happening are basically non-zero if he refuses to meet with the team and isn't going through interviews or private workouts, but there's a part of me that feels like if the franchise thinks he's the best option here and that he would succeed with this iteration of the roster, just go grab him anyways. I really believe the key to elevating this Hornets roster is to tap into the fact their ball handlers are already 6'6" and 6'7". I think adding the 6'6" Castle to that would create a real three-headed monster. 7th overall, we've got the Portland Trailblazers swinging on Ron Holland of the G League Ignite. I've said it a million times, I'm gonna say it here again, and I'll say it from my big board here in a few weeks. I love Holland as a prospect in this draft. I think there's very few multiverses where he's not in the least a strong two-way starter in the NBA. I personally consider drafting him as the Wizards at 2, Rockets at 3, Spurs at 4, Pistons, and even the Hornets. And I think he's especially strong here with the Trailblazers, who are still very much just searching for talent in general. You can throw him on the wing, get him easy offense in transition, attacking closeouts, and spotting up while he plays that patented high motor defense, all while really honing things like creating, passing, playmaking, NBA nuances, and improving his perimeter game. In short, alongside Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe, I think Holland is a great swing pick who also boasts a high floor as a two-way wing. Rob Dillingham finally off the board to San Antonio at number 8. I'm a massive fan of Dillingham's game, and I really think he's going to have an impactful NBA career, even factoring in the pretty lousy defense. Getting Riza Shea at 4 and Dilly here at number 8 would be a home run draft for the Spurs. Dillingham's going to be a strong 3-level scorer in the NBA. I really believe that. And his biggest struggle is so well covered by Wembanyama, who is probably set to win the next 15 Defensive Player of the Years in a row. And even on top of the scoring, I really believe in Dillingham blossoming as a playmaker too. Strong pick and strong fit for San Antonio. I'm not sure they ultimately lean this direction with the team valuing two-way ability, but we'll see. At number 9, we finally got the 7'3" defensive behemoth that is Donovan Clingan off the board, and to one of the few teams that I think is a genuinely realistic fit. I touched on it in my last mock, but there's just not that many teams here in dire need of Clingan's talents. Atlanta has the better option in Sarr. I think Washington is looking for upside, and then you've got to run of 5 straight teams that already have starting centers. So despite there being reports Clingan will be a top 3 pick, I'm not currently subscribing, although he could be a strong trade-up candidate. The fit with Memphis here is easy. Traditional centers are a proven success story in this Grizzlies core. I think Clingan's going to be good and impactful, and this move with the addition of others back from injury would really boost Memphis back to Western Conference contender status in my book. At number 10, we've got Jared McCain of Duke off the board to the Utah Jazz. I don't think I've seen this mocked anywhere else, but it's a fit that I highly enjoy for several reasons. McCain has flown under the radar as one of the best one-and-done freshmen in this class. While he's not an on-ball juggernaut just yet, and a bit undersized at the guard position, he's a lights-out shooter, high-field player in general, and I think he stands to have a long, successful NBA career. The Jazz are still feeling out the Keontae George point guard project. They've got these other assorted win-now and project-y pieces. I think McCain really helps you toe the line in that he is an immediate infusion of shooting in the backcourt in this core, but could also blossom into a legit difference maker with that aforementioned feel. George and McCain is a likely very weak defensive backcourt, but you've got Kessler backing them up. I still believe in Taylor Hendricks. Bryce Sensabaugh is a good prospect. I like this move for the Jazz. At number 11, we've got the Chicago Bulls taking a swing on Cody Williams of Colorado. I think the Bulls are legit trade-up candidates this year and perhaps maybe finally ready to go in a fresh direction. If they do stand pat at 11 though, I like them swinging on one of the upside wings in this area, Cody Williams being probably the most bang for your buck at this point. He's 6'9", fluid, offers baseline skills like good defense, transition, and a decent three-point shot. In the least, he could fill a gap in the current roster while also developing for the future. I don't think he'll be majorly impactful in his rookie season, but this iteration of the Bulls likely doesn't have actual championship aspirations. If they are wanting to go full rebuild though, and would actually be ready to pour into a developmental prospect, I'd like a swing on Isaiah Collier right here. At number 12, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder taking a flyer on Deron Holmes of Dayton. 12 is a tad rich for my taste, but I think this is an extremely possible landing spot for the ever-versatile big. At 6'10", Holmes has been one of the most impactful players in college basketball the last few years, and in his latest season really bloomed his perimeter game to make his NBA prospects a reality. He can score inside, spot up, put the ball on the deck some, pass, shoot, defend at a high level. Holmes offers the Thunder a much-needed front court piece, one that can score a lot of ways inside, play the team's face-up style if needed, even dribble and run some offense. He can play alongside Chet Holmgren, toggling between 4 and 5, or anchor the second unit. There's more to get into here, but he checks just about every intangible box for this organization as well. Easy fit and pick here at number 13, a small slide for Dalton Connect, but he eventually ends up with Sacramento, where he'll add even more off-ball scoring to a team that really can't get enough of it. I really buy into Connect as a long-term sharpshooter in the NBA, primarily using his off-ball skill set, but being able to turn it on and self-create when needed. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis usually operate with the ball in hands, and while Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, and more offer some of what Connect does, this pick just gives the team more lineup versatility and a player ready to make an impact in year one. Rounding out the lottery, we have the Portland Trail Blazers taking Yves Missi of Baylor, one of my favorite prospects in this draft. Missi flies under the radar as a big in this class. He was in the upper echelon of production among freshmen this year with a mobile skill set and some pretty extreme bounce. He's very raw as a prospect in general, but his 18.7 points and 2.5 blocks per 36 for a good Baylor team, to me, are really solid marks. And I really don't think he's that far behind some of the other top bigs for a much cheaper cost. This is a pretty big gamble for Portland, but I like sticking with the athleticism theme in pairing Scoot Henderson with a vertical threat. DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams currently occupy that front court, but likely shouldn't be a part of the long-term process for various reasons. Kicking off the post lottery is the Miami Heat taking a pretty unique pick in Isaiah Collier of USC. Collier came into the season as the #1 player in the class per RSCI, and despite him seeing kind of a roller coaster year with the Trojans, he still portrayed a ton of talent and limitless potential at the lead guard spot. The Heat are in a really interesting situation where they could be majorly reshuffling their roster or going a new direction altogether. I like them taking the swing on one of the highest upside players in this class, in a spot where you can really maximize your value, and the Heat have done that in past years. Miami has proven themselves as a strong developmental landing spot for the past several seasons, and Collier could end up as one of the best players in this class. I like taking the gamble and rolling the dice here if you're the Heat. At number 16, we have the Sixers taking a prospect who's flying up boards at the moment, Devin Carter of Providence. At 6'3", Carter is a stingy defender with a high motor who saw his production bloom in his third collegiate season, nearly 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 stocks per game. While there should be some reservations in taking Carter with Philly's primary backcourt member already being 6'2", Devin Carter plays much bigger than he is, and to me offers a better fit than the likes of Jared McCain and a few other guards hovering around this spot. He slots in great alongside Joel Embiid with his 37% shooting on near 7 attempts, and generally could be a difference maker as early as year one for a team that's looking to get over the hump very quickly. The Lakers will now be selecting at number 17 after the Pelicans deferred the pick to next season, and I've got them grabbing Khalil Ware of Indiana, a former 5-star who came into his own with 16 points, 10 rebounds, and nearly 2 blocks per game for the Hoosiers as a sophomore. Los Angeles desperately needs help on the interior, and in tandem with what Derek Lively is doing in the playoffs this year, that's going to make 7-footers like Ware really valuable. While I don't think he's ready to hit the ground running, and definitely doesn't pack the same defensive punch that Lively does, there could be a pathway to him getting easy buckets and having some early career success with just his sheer size. Ware's high-end projection is great, with the ability to eventually extend his game to the perimeter, but that might not come to fruition for a while. Still, that's a gamble the Lakers would likely be willing to take should they hang on to this pick at all. 18th overall, we have the Orlando Magic taking a chance on Tyler Smith, the third G League Ignite prospect off the board. Smith is 6'10" with a great frame for a forward. He's got bouncy athleticism, a translatable shooting stroke at 37% on over 3.5 attempts per game. With the Magic's guard lineup currently shored up with Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz, and the potential emergence of Anthony Black, who, as an aside, I still really like, I think Orlando could really lean into their size and grab a big forward to create a jumbo lineup. The fully realized version of Smith as an off-ball scorer alongside similarly sized 6'10" players in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner would be a nightmare to deal with. They can all three play on the perimeter and take it down low when needed. Smith is not a player that would slot in immediately for Orlando, but in a few years could be a really valuable rotational play. At number 19, we have the Toronto Raptors taking the ever-polarizing Zach Edey of Purdue. As always, Edey is likely the most fascinating player in this draft. 7'4" with some of the most elite production we've ever seen in collegiate ball, but a ton of question marks surrounding how his game is going to translate with slow foot speed, no real perimeter game, and some questionable reaction time. I've said it before, I really think there's a pathway for Edey to succeed if he lands in the right spot and gets the necessary reps in the right system. After missing out on their top pick this season, Toronto is kind of in a weird lane where they have all these great pieces but no real true direction. And I genuinely like bringing Edey home and kind of giving him that runway to blossom on this unit before leaning into developmental picks in the next few years. I don't think he would be getting some 30 minutes per night, but the Raps need a big, and I don't think it's out of the question he becomes a long-term contributor for them. At 20, we have the Cleveland Cavs gambling on Kyle "Flip" Filipowski, a sophomore forward center hybrid for the Duke Blue Devils. The Cavs are in an interesting spot. While they'd like to hang on to their entire roster, it feels like the only real mainstay at this moment is Evan Mobley, as it seems like signs are pointing towards one of their star guards exiting and center Jared Allen being dealt. With that being the case, I've gone with Flip as a potentially great frontcourt fit next to Mobley, using his perimeter game in more of a 4 role and allowing Mobley to play the true 5 for the first time in his career. There's plenty of growing to do on Flip's end. He is not a day one starter by any means, but he adds some lineup versatility and a drastically different look for Cleveland, and he could rev up quicker than we think if he starts hitting his threes. At number 21 overall, we have the New Orleans Pelicans grabbing an immediate plug-and-play prospect in Tristan da Silva of Colorado. At 6'9", da Silva can virtually do everything and should be ready to hit the ground running. He scored at all 3 levels, toggling on and off ball. He's a smart passer with some highlight-worthy plays. He rebounded well and is spry enough to make a difference defensively. There is a case he's not elite at any of those things, but his chameleon-esque ability to jump into lineups and make an impact lends itself well to New Orleans' system and would allow them to shake up their roster some in hopes of making a real playoff push next season. 22nd overall are the Phoenix Suns, currently undergoing one of the more interesting off seasons, and I have them adding Tyler Kolek of Marquette, for my money a day one contributor in the lead guard role. By now we all know that Phoenix sacrificed every drop of their depth for their star core of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Brad Beal. So much so that they literally do not play a point guard, and instead essentially handed the reins over to Booker. While Kolek isn't going to start, I do think he could play real minutes as a rookie, and offers a great change of pace as a player able to handle the ball, run offense, and right the ship when things get rushed. He averaged 7.7 assists in his final season with the Golden Eagles and would be more than capable of setting things up for the Suns' core. At number 23, Milwaukee selects Kevin McCullough, a shooting guard out of Kansas. With the way last season went, I think it's pretty vital the Bucks leave with a rookie who's able to somewhat make an impact. And I think McCullough could do that next year with some of the best perimeter defense in the class and a scalable offensive game. Lots are out on McCullough, and I get it. I'm still pretty in on his potential to be a long-term rotational piece in the NBA with his motor. And against my better judgment, I think the three-point shot can still come around, and I just generally think he's going to make winning plays in a small role. Throwing a 6'7" high-level defender capable of operating in the space Giannis provides does not seem like the worst move to me. In my last mock, I had New York leaving with 2 players who I thought could slot in and make a difference as soon as next season, helping to quell some of the shortened rotation woes for this team. In this mock, I've gone a drastically different direction, taking 19-year-old Jacoby Walter of Baylor, a talented former 5-star and one of the more productive freshmen in the class. Walter at 6'6" is an essential 2-guard capable of getting offense in a variety of ways, shooting, slashing, running in transition with some decent athleticism, and he projects to be an okay defender too if he can work out some of the kinks. There's likely no way Walter will play and especially make an impact in the short term, but his fit as a lengthy 3-and-D-esque 2-guard or wing next to Brunson and co. makes a lot of sense if the Knicks are willing to be patient. As previously stated, I've gone with another huge swing with the Knicks' second pick, French wing Tejan Salon of Cholet, who is a year away from being a few years away NBA-wise, but has massive potential as a 6'9" perimeter-oriented wing. There's a high likelihood a team in need of pure talent gambles on Salon higher than this, but if enough teams are turned off by how raw his current ability is, there's a real chance he could slip to the back half of the first round. There's pretty much no way he'd see the court for a few seasons in New York, but some of my reasoning with these picks revolve around both Walter and Salon remaining coveted prospects in the next few years. It gives the Knicks a few developmental prospects waiting in the wings, and if they want to create a package to nab a star down the line, both of these players hold value for at least a couple seasons. And if you hang on to them and they blossom into rotational players or even more, that's all the better. Here at number 26, we have the Washington Wizards grabbing Johnny Furphy, a surprise one and done out of Kansas. At 6'9", Furphy came onto the scene in a complimentary role for the Jayhawks, managing to add 9 points, 5 rebounds, and nearly 1 assist and steal per game in 24 minutes. Furphy is certainly a project, but again, the Wizards have all the time in the world in that regard, and with that time could mold Furphy into a lengthy ancillary piece that can shoot, pass, handle the ball, defend in space, and generally connect a 5-man unit. It's a gamble, sure, but one that would be really worth it with a late first pick in this draft for Washington, and one I could really see working out given Furphy's high energy style. The Timberwolves are fresh off a defeat to the finals-bound Dallas Mavericks and have about one more season at running it back with this core of Edwards, Cat, and Gobert. I like Dylan Jones at number 27 as a player who sticks with the jumbo theme for Minnesota as a 6'6" handler, but also adds some scoring pressure to a backcourt rotation that desperately needs it. He's not much of an off-ball player, but he can really fill it up and facilitate it if you give him the rock. He's 22, and while the Weber State to NBA jump is going to be a big one, there's a world where he could play some minutes off the bench next year and send a kind of static shock through that second unit, which needs more ball handling. Many look to this Nuggets pick as a way to add more win-now talent to the squad desperately needing to make another push. I don't necessarily see it that way. I've gone with Pacome. He's 6'8" with a good frame. He has real 3-level scoring potential, can create his own shot, good enough movement to potentially defend at a high level down the road. He is probably the swing pick to end all swing picks in 24. He'll be still 18 on draft night and has a ways to go in continuing to learn the ins and outs of basketball in general, especially within the confines of a team. But sticking Daddy A in the back pocket as a developmental prospect for this franchise that's been proven to really develop players is an interesting play to me. 29th, we have the Utah Jazz taking Nikola Jurisic of Mega in the ABA, a recent riser due to strong NBA draft combine scrimmage performances. He's 6'8", extremely capable of scoring at all 3 levels. He puts the ball on the floor, can operate in the pick and roll, and just generally oozes that connective EuroLeague style. With Utah snapping up a guard in the lottery, I like Jurisic as a player who could potentially fill in the middling gaps of the Utah roster as a connective forward. Even if he doesn't evolve into a starting caliber forward, I think his obvious feel for the game and basketball IQ peg him as a long-term rotational player, which is just fine for the Jazz with the 29th overall pick. Capping off the video is one of my favorite fits, Oso Ighodaro of Marquette to the Boston Celtics at 30. Ighodaro is an extremely interesting player. He stands at about 6'10" with a plus wingspan, and while he doesn't have an immense amount of scoring versatility, with no real perimeter game, he brings a ton of defensive acumen with switchability, active hands, mobility, and is a phenomenal passer for a big. Apart from the fact he can't hit threes, there are real shades of Al Horford to his game, and I think his insertion defensively next to stretch bigs like Horford and Porzingis, with his ability to operate like a hub and move the ball to Tatum, Brown, and more, would be really impactful for Boston, even next season.